Great, thanks for staying with us. Let's try and see if we can clear the air just a little bit for you on this sugar debate. And we're speaking to Budalangi Member of Parliament, Ababu Namwamba, who's joining us from our I&M studios in town. Mheshimiwa, thank you so much for joining us. So let's clear the air just a little bit for our viewers. Deal or no deal? There seems to be a little bit of a confusion of whether or not a deal was signed in the first place. Foreign Affairs CS, who is also in charge of international trade, says there was no deal. And if I can quote her, she says there was no agreement signed during the visit by President Kenyatta. If there were any agreements, they must have been signed by entities outside government. The president, on the other hand, that was yesterday, asked, where did you want me to get the deficit? I'd rather deal with the region. Let's help it or develop the region. Have you seen details of this deal? If you have, what does it say?
First of all, Linda, the discordance within government is in itself a cause for concern. The president pretty much confirmed that indeed there was a deal, and the question he posed was quite telling and revealing. On Tuesday night, I appeared on Citizen TV with Honorable Eden Duale, and he confirmed live on TV that indeed there was a deal over this sugar thing, and so obviously there's a deal. What is worrying is that the government is behaving very evasive and does not want to share the details of this deal. But what they are all indicators, all indication that indeed there's a deal. And the government should know that they are violating Article 35 of the Constitution, which demands that information on matters of this nature have to be disclosed to the public.
In other words, Mheshimiwa, even you do not have the details as at now.
We have not seen the agreement, but as I've said, the Swahili say, dalili ya mvua ni mawingu, and there are all signs that indeed there is a deal. I think government is running scared because they've just realized that the sugar deal has turned bitter, and so they must be cracking their heads on how do you deal with the PR disaster that this has turned out to be.
So if indeed there is a deal, why are you so opposed to it?
Linda, I mean, first of all, we know that agriculture is the mainstay of the economy of this country, and the sugar subsector is the backbone of the livelihoods of millions of Kenyans in the three major sugar belts in Western Kenya, Nyanza, and the coast region. And so if you do anything that places this sector at risk, you're immediately destroying livelihoods of millions of Kenyans. And of greater concern is that we're talking about a subsector that has been under the weather, as it were, for years. This is a sector that should be undergoing massive resuscitation, massive aid, and not this kind of assault. And you're also talking about a sector that has suffered heavily in the past from illegal importation of unregulated importation of sugar. And so this coming just a couple of months after we celebrated the possibility of a revival of this sector, for me it feels like a doctor that puts a critically ill patient on life support, then immediately injects the same patient with lethal injection.
Mheshimiwa, let's try and see if we can get the reasoning behind this. Sugar production in the country, the capacity for the country right now to produce sugar is 600,000 metric tons. Our consumption, going by the figures that I have, is 850,000 metric tons. So in other words, we have a deficit of 260,000 metric tons. Are our farmers producing enough sugar to meet demand in the market?
Linda, the concern for me is that this country has capacity to be self-sufficient in sugar production. And if indeed there is a deficit, and I highly doubt those figures, I would want someone to tell me what is the source of these figures? What is the empirical validity of these figures? Where are they coming from? Are they from the Kenya Sugar Authority? Are they from the Ministry of Agriculture? Are they from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? Who exactly is the source of this data? What I know for certainty is that virtually all the sugar millers in this country are operating below capacity. The Western Parliamentary Caucus, we visited Mumia Sugar Company just the other day, and the management confirmed to us that the company has been operating way, way below capacity. And this is the story in virtually all these sugar factories. The other thing that we need to note is that there is a lot of sugar in the stores right now. You go to Nzoia, you'll find stores stacked to the rafters with stocks of sugar. The same case in Sony. And so, where is this deficit? How can we be talking about deficit when a lot of our sugar millers have stocks in their stores to the extent that they're not even buying cane anymore? Cane farmers in Migori will tell you, Linda, that their cane has not been collected from their farms for the last 36 months because there is no space. And so where is this deficit?
So basically
I
what
highly
you're saying,
doubt those figures.
So basically what you're saying is that if indeed there is a deficit, then it's man-made.
I believe that we have what I can only call sugar piracy in this country. We have created an untouchable cabal of sugar pirates who are like pests. They feed on the suffering of the poor Kenyan sugarcane farmer, and they create these unconfirmed, unverified, and quantified and empirical shortage so that they can bring in cheap sugar from all over the place. They evade tax. They don't pay taxes on these imports, making their produce a lot cheaper than our own products here. And so, rather than trying to convince us to allow importation of sugar, these governments should be protecting the sector jealously, the way serious economies do. You go to big economies like France and Germany, they still give subsidies to their farmers. The American government still jealously protects the corn farmers. You go to Holland, and even though we export a lot of flowers to Holland, they still protect their tulip farmers. So government should be protecting our farmers instead of massaging the economic interests of Uganda and the sugar pirates in this country.
Okay, indulge me a little bit. Just let's assume there is a deficit because you're questioning those numbers. And the president said this is the only way he could do this. He said you don't expect him to do business with Brazil. Let's develop this region. So if indeed there is a deficit and you're opposed to the deal that was signed in Uganda, what's your alternative? Is there a plan B?
Linda, let me first of all clarify that we are not opposed to trade between ourselves and especially our brother-sister states within the COMESA region. And there would be no better business partner than Uganda or Tanzania or Rwanda. And so we are not opposed to that. But what we are saying, we will not support any unregulated flooding of our market with cheap sugar from anywhere. And in any case, I mean, if you have to choose between regional interests and Kenyan interests, any day I will pick Kenyan interests. Kenyan interests must take priority. And for me, we should give priority to improving, enhancing, and protecting our own sugar sector. Government had already made a commitment recently to start reviving Mumias and supporting other sugar factories. Let us put emphasis on our local production. And once we have empirically determined, real, not imagined, factual, not fictitious or fictional deficit, then we can put in place proper mechanisms approved by the National Assembly on how we can bridge that gap after it has been empirically and factually and honestly confirmed.
Okay, finally, Mheshimiwa, before I let you go, you want the government to cancel this deal. What will you as leaders do if indeed the government remains adamant on this deal?
Government has to cancel this deal. This deal is sour. This deal is bitter. This deal is betrayal. It is, as I've said, like a doctor that has just put a patient on life support and then proceeds to inject this patient with lethal, life-threatening medicine. This deal has to be cancelled. If it is not cancelled, then definitely it is going to lead to a big sugar war. And it is a war that will be so nasty, government is not going to like it. That you can take to the bank and it will earn you interest.
Budalangi Member of Parliament Ababu Namwamba, thank you so much for speaking to us on KTN Prime, of course giving his views on the deal, alleged deal that has been